Hello and welcome to the wildcard edition of the Pickwatch podcast. I'm Casey Joyner, the football scientist. You may remember me from my 14-year stint with ESPN where I covered the NFL and fantasy football. I'm now on the independent path via my website, thefootballscientist.com. I'm also writing a weekly pick'em article for Pickwatch. Taking a look at my Week 17 picks, they went 12-4, brings my 2020 season mark to 172-83. That's a 67.5% win rate. It's tied for 12th highest among the more than 100 analysts tracked by Pickwatch.com. Take a look at my playoff picks, the wildcard playoff picks. Each of the sections I'm going to detail predicts which team is going to win, provides a quick summary of why that selection was made. The picks also contain a confidence value for each selection. It's on a 1 to 10 scale. 10's the most confident, 1's the least confident. So the higher the number, the more confident I am that this team's going to win that game. Now let's get on to the picks. We'll start with the Saturday opener of Indianapolis at Buffalo. The Bills head into this weekend as maybe the hottest team in the league. Buffalo's won 6 straight games since their Week 11 bye. They've outscored their opposition by a 229-110 margin in that span. That's incredible. More than 2-to-1 ratio of points for Buffalo over the past 6 games. They've also racked up 1,463 offensive yards over the past 3 games, and they've held 3 of their last foes to 255 or fewer offensive yards. They're playing well on both sides of the ball. The Colts, they're not on quite that strong of a streak, but they have won 4 of the last 5. They scored 24 or more points in 8 straight games, so you're getting a consistent performance from the Phillip Rivers and the Colts. The problem for the Colts, it's been the whole problem for the entire year, is the game is going to come down to turnovers or more apt giveaways for them. The Colts are 2-4 when they have tallied 2 or more giveaways on offense this year. So if they have 2 giveaways, 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, a combination thereof, they're 2-4. If they give 1 or fewer giveaways in a game this year, they're 9-1. Remember a couple weeks ago, they had Pittsburgh nearly beaten that game, and then the second half, they had 2 turnovers. It wasn't a huge thing. You wouldn't think it'd be enough to allow that game to go from the huge lead they had to the comeback for the Pittsburgh win, the largest second half comeback in the Mike Tomlin era for the Steelers, but it was, and it shows just how important it is to the Colts that they not turn the ball over. Taking a look at Buffalo, they've racked up 2 or more takeaways on defense in 5 of the past 8 games, and they've done that 9 total times this year. So this is a defense that can take the ball away. They also have the capacity to not only win that battle, but they have a capacity to play well in track meets. Those are games where each team scores 24 or more points. I've got the Bills going 5-1 in those games this year. That's what their record is, 5-1. And the Colts are 3-2 in that type of contest. So that shows that if the game becomes a high-scoring game, the Colts, even though they are pretty consistent, they don't tend to do that well in those contests. So I think this game probably does turn into something of a track meet, and I think the Colts might get a couple of turnovers. It gives a lot more pass to victory to Buffalo. So I've got the Bills in this one with a confidence level of 5. Next up, let's take a look at the Rams at Seattle. Seattle's 2020 season, it's a tale of 3 seasons, actually. They start the year with the approach of trying to win track meets. They give up 135 points and a ridiculously bad 2,356 offensive yards in the first 5 games of the year. I mean, that's insane. Nearly 2,400 yards in 5 games. But they win every one of those matchups because they scored 169 points in that span. They tried to keep that going, but over the next 4 games, they had 3 turnovers in 3 of the next 4 games, and they started losing the track meets. So Pete Carroll, who's by nature a defensive coach, he was a defensive coordinator before he became a head coach, he went back to his tried and true formula of going with power rushing plus counterpunch vertical passing is what I call it. Counterpunch vertical passing, you run the ball, the defense comes up to stop the run, you hit him over the top. That approach worked like a champ in the past and worked like a champ this year, as the Seahawks have won 6 of their last 7, despite not scoring as much on offense because they posted 110 or more rushing yards in 5 of those matchups, thus slowing the game down and protecting their defense. And they gave the ball away only 4 times in those contests. So they had that span where they had 10 giveaways in 3, and actually over the course of 4 games, so they had 3 games with 3 more turnovers. Over the past 7 games, they only had 4 giveaways the entire time. So they have fixed the turnover problem like Russell Wilson said he would. The Rams, they've been consistent with their approach of combining a powerhouse defense with a 3-headed rushing attack. They also like to control the ball and play that type of contest, but they posted fewer than 230 net passing yards in 4 of the past 6 games, and that offset the strengths of their defense in the rushing attack, and it's led to 3 losses in the past 6 contests. Add that to the Rams' quarterback question mark. Are they going to start Goff? Are they going to start Wolford? Is it going to matter because Goff is hurt? I mean, it's a bad situation for them. The passing game doesn't look like it's going to get that much better. So there's a lot more path to victory here for Seattle than LA. So I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one with a confidence level of 5. Now we'll head off to one of the more intriguing games of this weekend, Tampa Bay at Washington. Tom Brady's been dominant for such a long period of time that it seems he's not getting enough credit for his incredible 2020 season. He's 43 years old. He left the play calling genius of Bill Belichick. He had to learn a new offense and he has new teammates. He dealt with plenty of injuries to those teammates and multiple instances of public criticism from his new coach, which is really odd for him. I don't think he got that ever in the Bill Belichick era. Yet he still breaks through and posts 4,633 passing yards and has a 40-12 touchdown to interception ratio. It's just incredible that he does this. He's probably the greatest player in NFL history, or at least there was already a strong argument for that even coming into the season. He does this at this age under these circumstances. I don't think there's a question mark anymore. The aerial success led to the Bucs offense being a consistent scoring machine. Tampa Bay's posted 23 or more points in all but 2 contests this year. Brady and the Bucs have also seemed to solve a giveaway issue. They had problems with giveaways. They had, I think it was a 5 or 6 game stretch where they had at least 1 turnover, and there were games that had multiple turnovers. It really was not a typical Tom Brady style offense. But since they had that bye, they've held only 1 giveaway in the 4 games following that. So that came at a perfect time. They're kind of an older team. Brady's an older quarterback, obviously. You give him an off week, give him time to get a little downtime, and suddenly everybody starts playing better. I think it was a perfect time for them, and it makes them ascending coming into the playoffs. Now, Washington deserves a ton of credit for having won 5 of their past 7. They can thank Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio's strong defensive schemes for this success. The football team's allowed 20 or fewer points in 7 straight games, and they only allowed 111 points in that span. So they're playing exceptionally well. In fact, they had 2 games where they allowed 20 points, and in all 5 of the other games, they allowed fewer than 20 points. They're also excelling at taking the ball away as they've notched 14 takeaways in the past 7 contests. So that's going to test the Bucs and Brady's penchant for not giving turnovers. The problem for the football team is they haven't scored more than 23 points since Week 12, and they have 9 giveaways on offense over the past 4 weeks. Now, usually when all things are equal, I'll take the great defense over the great offense, especially if that great defense is hosting the game like Washington is hosting this one. But in this case, they've got scoring woes that we just talked about. You got injuries to Alex Smith, injury to Antonio Gibson. McLaurin also was hurt coming into the end of the season, so none of those guys are probably going to be at full strength. It just makes them ill-suited to keep up in many potential game incarnations. If this is a high-scoring game in any respect, if this is 27-24, I don't see Washington being able to keep up. They would have to make this a 20-17 contest. I think as good as their defense has been playing, I don't think they have a lot of paths to be able to hold Tampa Bay to 17 or fewer points. So I think Tampa Bay has got many more paths to victory, so they're the preferred option here with a confidence level of 7. Now we head to the Sunday slate, starting with Baltimore at Tennessee. This could end up as the highest scoring game of Wild Card Weekend. You think of these teams as kind of smash-mouth defensive teams, but there's a lot of reasons to think there could be 70 points or more scored in this contest. Baltimore's on a 5-game win streak where they've tallied 27 or more points in each contest, and they posted a total of 186 points in that span. It's just an incredible run. The Ravens have done this with a great display of rushing power. They've racked up 230 or more rushing yards in 4 of those games. They posted 404 rushing yards against Cincinnati in Week 17. It set a club record. It's the 4th highest single-game rushing yardage total in the league since 1950. Baltimore's posted 3,000 rushing yards in 2 straight seasons, first team to ever do that, and Lamar Jackson is the first quarterback to ever post 1,000 more rushing yards in 2 seasons. Just an incredible rushing team. The Titans aren't up to that level, not quite, but they have scored 30 or more points in 6 of the past 7 games, and they tallied 150 rushing yards in 7 of the past 8 games. Now, Derrick Henry posted 250 rushing yards against Houston in Week 17. He became only the 7th player to win the NFL rushing title on back-to-back seasons. He's also the first player in league history to tally 5 games with 200 or more rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, this is 2 teams that aren't just running the ball to be conservative. They're not running the ball to try and control the clock. They're running the ball because they have breakaway running games and they can dominate in that end of the field. Now, this combination should, as noted, make this a rare, what I call a slugfest track meet. They're going to be a slugfest smash-mouth football, but it is also likely to be a track meet. Baltimore's got a 2-2 mark in track meets this year versus Tennessee's 7-2 record. So Tennessee is more used to getting into those sorts of contests. And as great as the Baltimore pass defense is, Tennessee has great receivers, and they might be able to hit just enough passing plays to be able to keep it into that track meet form. So I add all that to the game being in Nashville, and I'm going to take the Titans here, not by very much. I think it's going to be a 34-31 game, or, like I said, even higher scoring than that, but it's going to be a high-scoring contest. Could go either way, but because they're at home and because they have the better record in track meets, I'm going to take the Titans in this one with a confidence level of 2. This might be the least intriguing game of the weekend, Chicago at New Orleans. The Saints, they were on a 9-game win streak prior to back-to-back losses in weeks 14 and 15, but they closed the 2020 campaign out with that 52-33 destruction over Minnesota, where Alvin Kamara had 6 rushing touchdowns. He should have had the 7th. I still don't know why they took him out of the contest, but maybe they wanted to just take it easy on him for a second. They followed that up with a 33-7 obliteration in Carolina that easily could have been worse. They were up 33-7 at I think the second play of the fourth quarter, and they took their foot off the proverbial gas pedal. They could have easily scored 40 or more if they decided to. The Saints are battling injuries to Kamara as well as Michael Thomas. Looks like they're going to have both of them in the lineup. They're probably going to have Emmanuel Sanders in there as well. So they're getting some of their top players back. They're also, though, by the way, even if they don't get those players back or they're not playing at quite the top level or they're going to be on proverbial pitch counts, the Saints are the best team in the league at getting quality production out of every facet of their roster. So as great as it is to have those guys back, no team does a better job of getting good production out of the entirety of the roster on both sides of the ball. So that's a big plus for them and something that most teams in the playoffs can't make a claim to. Now, it seems Mitchell Trubisky was highly motivated when he lost his starting quarterback job. Maybe that's exactly what he needed to see. Hey, I'm facing professional career extinction if I don't start to play better. So when he got back, the Bears offense showed incredible improvement. Coming into the Week 17 matchup against Green Bay, which was kind of an outlier for Chicago based on how they played of late. But coming into that matchup, they had posted 30 or more points and 380 or more offensive yards in 4 straight contests. So the offense is playing exceptionally well. The rushing attack has also taken a huge step forward following the Week 11 bye, kind of probably like Tampa Bay. They just needed a bit of rest to be able to refocus themselves because they're now on a 6-game streak of they've gained 100 or more yards on the ground. So you have to respect Trubisky and the ground game. The big issue in this contest, though, is the subpar state of the Bears' defense. Chicago, everybody talks about how great their defense is, but they've allowed 27 or more points in 4 of the past 6 games. It's due in part to a combination of injuries and subpar play. I don't think they were ever quite as good as people thought they were. Their offense was so conservative that they kind of protected their defense. So when they started to go to this more aggressive approach on offense, it probably exposed some of the weaknesses they have on defense. So that's just not a good place to be when you're facing Sean Payton and a Drew Brees directed offense. And plus, again, mentioning Kamara, Thomas, Sanders, Latavius Murray, you've got all these players on their team. It's just, I don't think the Bears have the kind of firepower to be able to keep up, and they're on the road. So I'm going to give New Orleans the pick in this one with a confidence level of 7. We close wildcard weekend out with an AFC North rematch. Actually, it's the 3rd game. They're a proverbial rubber match between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Both these clubs stumbled in the late stages of the season. Cleveland lost 2 of its past 4 games, and Pittsburgh lost 4 of its last 5 contests. The Browns' problems are most related to offense. They scored 20 or fewer points in 2 of their last 3 games. They scored 24 points against the Pittsburgh defense that was resting many of its starters in Week 17. You'd think the Browns, with everything they had to play for, would have been able to score more. They didn't. They kind of struggled on offense even in that contest. The Steelers' offensive woes, they've been well chronicled. They've tallied 100 or more rushing yards only one time since Week 6, and I think they had 106 yards in that contest. They really didn't have a great showing there either. But their rush defense should be taking a lot more blame than it has because they've given up 471 ground yards in the last 3 games. Pittsburgh run defense has not been anywhere near as good. They're going to get probably Robert Spillane back, or they could get him back. They're going to get some of the defensive players back, so some of that's going to get better, but they haven't been a shutdown defense ever since they lost Bud Dupree. They've been a good defense, a very good defense, but not the same when they lost that pass rush. When that rushing game defense trend is combined with Cleveland's superb run blocking, it would normally be enough to lean this game in the Browns' direction. Even though they're on the road, I would still normally think of picking the Browns when you're talking about a great run blocking team versus a bad run defense team, or at least a subpar run defense team in Pittsburgh case of late. But Cleveland hasn't practiced this week. They've been missing at least 8 starters and their head coach due to a variety of reasons. I mean, Baker Mayfield came out today and he said he hasn't even thrown a pass all week. It's just a bad situation. They're going to be going to a backup play caller. They're going to be going with an interim head coach. They're on the road. Pittsburgh's had basically a week off for their starters. They're going to have home field advantage. They've got a lot of people coming back. Ebron's going to be back. You're going to get, maybe like as mentioned, Spillane back. So Pittsburgh's back almost to full strength, or at least as full strength as they can be at this point, and Cleveland is going to be just so hamstrung by all their injury issues and other things, that I just can't see Cleveland having a very good chance of winning this one. I got Pittsburgh picked with a confidence level of 6. You could even argue me into a confidence level of 8 under certain circumstances.